Hello, everyone. I'm Kate Marianchild, and I'm the author of Secrets of the Oak Woodlands, Plants and Animals Among California's Oaks. So welcome to the wild and wacky world of acorn woodpeckers. I hope this presentation is a welcome break from the wild and wacky world of humans right now at this moment in history. So I'm going to start telling you a bit about me and my relationship with acorn woodpeckers and how I happened to write my book. In 2001, I moved from Fort Bragg in Northern California to an oak woodland outside of Ukiah in Mendocino County, California. I was new to Ukiah and very sick with Lyme disease, so I was isolated and lonely and depressed. But I was surrounded by acorn woodpeckers who were squawking and talking and pecking and pounding, flashing their white wing windows and constantly flying around, swooping back and forth and back and forth. I knew absolutely nothing about them except that they were woodpeckers and they pounded acorns into holes they made in trees and also in the walls of my yurt. And they woke me up from naps. I would start awake and call, "Come in," only to find an acorn woodpecker knocking at the door. But the entertainment they provided far outweighed the challenges. Plus, their ancestors had been there for millions of years, and I had only been there for one. I loved having them around, and I wondered and worried about them. Were they threatened in any way? What did they need from their environment to survive? And was there enough of that? So I was soon on the board of my local Audubon chapter, and I requested that we have a program on acorn woodpeckers. And it turned out that Walt Koenig, who's the world authority on acorn woodpeckers, came to Ukiah every fall. So he gave us a talk. And when I learned from him that they had the most complex social and reproductive structure of any vertebrate species in the world, I wondered who else in the oak woodlands around me was equally extraordinary or extraordinary on a world-class level or just plain extraordinary. And that started me on a 25-year exploration of the flora, fauna, and fungi of oak woodland ecosystems. And that's why I credit acorn woodpeckers with inspiring my book, because all that exploration and investigation ended up in a book. But before I dive into acorn woodpeckers, I'm going to zoom out a bit and talk about woodpeckers in general. There are 239 woodpecker species in the world, 23 in North America, and of those 23 in North America, almost half, 10, are in California. Woodpeckers live on all continents that have trees, except for Australia, New Zealand, some of the islands around Australia and New Zealand, and Madagascar. They are almost but not quite considered passerines or songbirds. Instead of singing to establish and defend territory and attract mates, they drum. And some also have special courtship displays like northern flickers. They have what's called a wiki dance. Woodpeckers are the most specialized bird family in the world, and they come in a variety of colors, shapes, and sizes. Some are really big, like this pileated woodpecker, which is the largest woodpecker in North America since the tragic extinction of the ivory-billed woodpecker. And they can be really small, like this ochre-collared picolet of South America, who is about the size of a nuthatch. Most, but not all, woodpeckers subsist on insects, mainly on insects. And most, but not all of them forage on trees. But some forage on the ground, some live in deserts where there are no trees, and some catch insects in flight. Some, like the sapsuckers, eat mainly sap instead of insects, sap that's rich in minerals and hormones. Woodpecker tongues can vary in length and texture according to how and where they find their food, and some tongues are really long for probing deep holes and crevices. So this is a male northern flicker, and these birds have the longest tongues in woodpeckerdom. Do you know what flickers eat? They eat ants, both adults and larvae. They eat them especially during the breeding season. They eat more ants than any other bird in North America. And where do they look for ants? Mostly in underground tunnels that are also called galleries, but also on the surface of the ground. So every time this tongue sticks out, it gets covered with viscous saliva that ants stick to. But where is this bird going to store that tongue when he pulls it back in? Like most of us, he has a storage problem. But this one's for his tongue, and ours is for all of our junk. This tongue obviously won't fit inside his bill. So where does it go? Check this out. So in that upper picture, the pink part is the tongue, and you can see that it only goes to slightly, around his neck area. But in the lower picture on the right, on the left, when it's retracted, the tongue goes all the way around the back of his head and over the top of his head in grooves that are in his skull, and it anchors in a sinus in his left sinus, which you can see in this picture where we're looking at it from the top. So most woodpeckers have stiff pointed tails and what are called zygodactyl toes, with the first and fourth toes pointing backwards and the second and third pointing forward. So for all these characteristics, I've said most or many, but not all. But there's one thing that all woodpeckers share. They all nest in cavities. Not necessarily tree cavities, however. The Gila woodpecker nests in saguaro cactus. So lots of birds that aren't woodpeckers nest in cavities, but most of them don't have the equipment for excavating in trees. In North America, there are 40 bird species that depend on woodpeckers to provide cavities for them. And nest cavities are at a premium these days because of habitat loss, as we will see with this cavity. This pair of western bluebirds is investigating a nest cavity in a snag. And a snag is a standing dead tree, and at least 10% of a healthy forest consists of snags and dead limbs. They provide essential habitat for a wide variety of organisms. When I first saw this nest cavity, I was taking a walk and I saw these bluebirds, and I assumed this was their nest. They looked at it and they fluttered a bit. But they never went inside. So I'd been on that walk and I continued my walk. And 20 minutes later, on my way back, I checked the cavity again and I saw this. This is a northern flicker in that same cavity. He's guarding his chicks while his wife is out collecting food. And in this video he's feeding them. Oops. And he just regurgitated for them a delicious breakfast of ant larvae. So here's that same snag again, this time occupied by a western screech owl. So three species were taking turns using this cavity, which indicates how much cavities are at a premium. The birds like screech owls and bluebirds and titmice and nuthatches who don't have the equipment to excavate their own nests are referred to as secondary cavity nesters. So this is a male Nuttall's woodpecker. These are the only woodpeckers in Northern California that have this ladder-like pattern on their backs. So keep that in mind when you look at photos of acorn woodpeckers later on. Their backs are completely black except for a white rump patch. Nuttall's woodpeckers are endemic to California, which means native only to California and and also native to extreme northwest Baja. And they live almost entirely within Oak Woodlands. Where I live in Mendocino County, we think we have more Nuttall's woodpeckers than any other county in California. A few summers ago, I found a Nuttall's woodpecker nest, and I got this video of a female feeding a baby. So look closely. If you look closely, you can see a bird right up here. This is the female, and you're going to see her backing down the tree. These parents always arrived at the top of this tree and then backed their way down. So she was trying to feed the chick a moth, a moth caterpillar called a variegated cutworm. And that chick was pretty intimidated by that gnarly caterpillar, and I'm not sure if he actually ate it. So now back to acorn woodpeckers. This is their range. They can be found from southwest Washington all the way down to the northern Andes of Colombia. And their highest population density is in Mexico, which is not surprising because Mexico also has the world's highest diversity and density of oaks. Most populations of acorn woodpeckers are resident, meaning they stay put in the same place year round, except for in the Huachuca Mountains of southeast Arizona, where there is one population that migrates. And it doesn't share the characteristics of our acorn woodpeckers with their clan structure and their acorn granaries, which I'll be talking about later. So do you know how to tell if this is a male or a female acorn woodpecker? The way to tell is look at the forehead and the head. The white on the forehead touches the red of the crown in the males. So this is a male. And on this female, there's a black band between the white forehead and the red crown. And what is the sex of this bird? Well, this is a trick question. This is a nestling, and we can't tell because all immature acorn woodpeckers look like males. So this one could be either a male or a female. Here is a nestling from that same nest, just a few days older. This youngster is getting close to fledging and is busy taking in information about the big wide world out there. And here on the right is a bird who recently left the nest. Could have been that one. The adult doesn't find any food and flies off to look for some somewhere else. Here, the chick is still valiantly looking for food when a different adult, a female, comes in. So lots of people regularly see acorn woodpeckers and hear them talking to each other all day long and see and hear them drilling holes and pounding acorns into trees, but have no curiosity about them, probably because they're so common. And so most people know no intimate details about their lives. So let's talk about that. Acorn woodpeckers live in clans of up to 21 birds. And a clan consists of two groups. One group is the breeding birds, and there can be up to 4 breeding females, although there's usually just 1 or 2, and up to 8 breeding males. The breeding females are almost always sisters or a mother and 1 or more daughters. And the males are usually brothers or a father and 1 or more sons. These birds have permanent communal marriages, and any female might mate with any male, and any male might mate with any female. So this system is neither polygyny, in which one male has multiple wives, or polyandry, in which one female has multiple husbands. And I'm saying husbands and wives because that's what we humans can best relate to. This system is called polygynandry, which means multiple female and multiple male. And there are only 2 bird species in the world to practice polygynandry, and the other one has a totally different social structure from that of acorn woodpeckers. Sorry, so there's that word polygynandry that you can get a better look at. Now, I said they have permanent communal marriages, and what the heck does that mean? Well, another way of saying it is till death do us part. So let's say we have a clan of 3 wives and 5 husbands. And let's say one of these wives gets grabbed and carried off by a Cooper's hawk. She will not be replaced. And now there are only 2 breeding females. And let's say a few weeks later, one of these females gets eaten by a snake while she's sitting on eggs. Now there's only 1 female left in this so-called marriage. Only when she has died or disappeared will new breeding females join the clan and become the mates of these males. And it works exactly the same for males. All of the males have to die or disappear before new husbands will come into the marriage. And how that a breeding vacancy gets filled is the stuff of legend, and I'll talk about that at the end. But remember, I said a clan consists of 2 groups, the first one group being the breeders. Well, the other group is the non-breeding helpers, who are the offspring of the parents. And all of the parents at one time were non-breeding helpers. So these non-breeding birds remain with their parents for up to 5 years, and they help raise their siblings, their parents' new broods of children, successive ones over 5 years, and they help expand and defend the clan's unique acorn storehouses. And I'll talk later about why these sexually mature birds, these non-breeding helpers, become sexually mature in short order, why they remain celibate and stay with their parents for up to 5 years, and why the parents allow that. Because most bird parents drive their babies away as soon as they can forage and fend for themselves. So this is what a pretty large acorn woodpecker clan might look like. A very large one, actually. But the size of each of these groups within a clan varies. And clans are larger in territories that have a variety of oaks and reliable acorn crops because of the variety of oaks. So acorn woodpeckers have these extraordinary and utterly unique communal marriages. And if that isn't astonishing enough, they also do almost everything else communally within their clans. But before I talk about their communalism, in the interest of human communalism and sharing, I'd like you to say hello in Acorn Woodpecker to anyone who might be in the room with you, or to me, or just to practice for the next time you see another human or some acorn woodpeckers. I like the Chumash Indians' pronunciation of the word. They say pulakak, pulakak, pulakak. This is the most common vocalization of acorn woodpeckers, and it's given when clan members land near each other and they're saying hello, and also during territorial disputes. I hope you're not having any territorial disputes going on right now. So now turn to your friends in the same room with you, or pretend you just landed on a branch, or talk to me and say, Pulakak, Pulakak, Pulakak. And I want to point out the white rump patch of this bird. We don't have any other woodpeckers that are mainly black, white, and red and have white rump patches in Northern California. So another example of acorn woodpecker communalism is their industrious building, maintaining, and defending of their acorn storehouses, which are known as granaries, not pronounced granaries for some reason, but granaries. I hope all of you have seen one of these. These astonishing creations are unique in the world. There's not a single other vertebrate, meaning spine-bearing species in the world that excavates individual holes to store individual food items. Large granaries can contain as many as 50,000 holes, and sometimes in late fall, 50,000 acorns. They are the result of work by many, many generations of individuals from one acorn woodpecker clan. And the work, harvesting acorns, transporting them, excavating holes, pounding acorns into holes, and guarding the acorns, is done by all the clan members. They even move 1% of the stored acorns every week. And that's because acorns shrink and become loose with time. They become loose in their holes, and other animals can steal them. Lewis's woodpeckers are one of the main robbers. Also, jays and squirrels. Everyone in the clan shares equally or to the best of their ability in all that work. And then, wonder of wonders, any bird in the clan can eat any acorn at any time. There is no individual ownership or possessiveness about those acorns. So that bird was pecking open and eating an acorn that had been previously stored in that branch. But the egalitarianism and sharing of acorn woodpeckers applies only to clan members. They fiercely defend their stored acorns against acorn woodpeckers from neighboring clans, as well as various birds, and also mammals like, as I said, squirrels and wood rats, for instance, whose favorite foods are oak leaves and acorns. And here's a ground squirrel who made off with an acorn or three from this granary. And the following slides are stills I took from a YouTube video, so they're a little bit fuzzy. Here you can see her full cheek pouches. You can see that she's kind of bulgy around the cheeks and neck. And she quickly got dive bombed by an acorn woodpecker, a vigilant clan member, who actually collided with her and then chased her off to a snag and even bit her and pulled her skin. I felt really sorry for the ground squirrel watching this video. Western gray squirrels also get dive bombed, and they're so afraid of acorn woodpeckers that they'll go way out of their way, taking risky ground routes to get to where they want to go to avoid them. So many people think that acorn woodpeckers store acorns not to eat the acorns, but to eat the weevil and moth larvae in them. First of all, not all acorns have weevil and moth larvae in them. And secondly, those larvae have usually pupated and moved on by the time acorn woodpeckers would get around to eating them. So that's not true. It's a myth that has persisted for about 100 years. And when Walt Koenig gives talks, he makes his audiences repeat after him, acorn woodpeckers eat acorns. Acorn woodpeckers eat acorns. But have you ever watched an acorn woodpecker fly out from a perch and abruptly turn around and fly right back? That behavior is called fly catching. So even though they're called acorn woodpeckers, and even though they do eat acorns, their favorite food is flying insects, and specifically a particular insects. And if you look at their species name, Formicivorous, you might guess what their favorite flying insect is. Think formic acid. So their favorite food is flying ants. In the warm months when insects are flying, they eat a lot of flying ants. And in fact, I learned from Mio Marufo, who is a pomo educator, environmentalist, and artist, that pomo peoples have never eaten acorn woodpeckers because they taste like ants. So while flying ants and other flying insects are the preferred food of acorn woodpeckers, they need a backup food for the cold months when not many insects are flying. And oaks provide that backup in the form of acorns, and most acorn woodpeckers live only in places where there are at least 2 oak species to make sure that there's always an acorn crop available, because some years, some species don't produce very many acorns at all. One year, one winter, all the oak, all the acorn crops failed at Hastings Natural History Reservation, which is where most of the studies of acorn woodpeckers have been done, and all the acorn woodpeckers disappeared, and no one knew where they'd gone, but they returned in the spring. And it's thought that they moved to a grove of tan oaks. And tan oaks aren't true oaks, but they do produce acorns. And by the way, an acorn is what? It's a nut that has a cap. Acorns are the only nuts in the world that have caps. And only oaks produce acorns except for tan oaks, which aren't true oaks, and they also do. And tan oaks have the more reliable acorn crops every year, probably because they are pollinated by both insects and wind, whereas true oaks are pollinated only by wind. Okay, so what else do acorn woodpeckers do communally besides marriage and food storage and consumption? Well, the breeding females all share the same nest. It's a cavity nest, so that bird is poking its head out of the entrance to a nest cavity. And that's a female, and She and her joint nesting female relatives, usually sisters or a daughter and mother or daughters and mother, share the job of incubating eggs and brooding chicks during the day, and then males take over at night. But it's not all kumbaya between these joint nesting females. Let's say this female, bird A, shares a nest with her sister, bird B, and bird A lays the first egg, this bird. If that egg were allowed to hatch, the chick that would come out would start getting fed sooner and it would grow bigger faster and would have an advantage over bird B's later chicks. It would be better able to compete for food because it would be bigger and stronger. So this bird, bird A's sister, will go into the nest, pick up her sister's egg, remove it from the nest, and carry it to the tree where early eggs are deposited. And then various members of the clan, and frequently the sister who removed the egg and the sister who laid it, will eat it piece by piece. But it's not quite as yucky as it sounds, or I don't know, ugly as it sounds, because the first eggs are usually what are called runt eggs, R-U-N-T, which are abnormally small and have no yolk. And acorn woodpeckers, interestingly, produce more runt eggs than any other bird species in the world. So it's only when both birds are laying normal eggs and have begun a normal laying sequence that they will stop destroying each other's eggs and putting them out for anybody in the clan to eat them. After that, when they're both laying normal eggs in their normal laying sequence, the sisters will start cooperating again, taking turns incubating eggs during the day. And after the eggs hatch, everyone in the clan, including the non-breeding helpers, will defend the nest, feed the nestlings, and remove the baby's fecal sacs. And I'll talk about that a little later, what fecal sacs are. It was surprising to me before I knew about this clan structure to see two or three adults lined up below a nest. And I now know that they might have been waiting to feed the nestlings. And at first they feed the nestlings mainly insects, but as the nestlings grow, the adults feed them more and more pre-digested acorns or acorn fragments. I think this bird has both pre-digested acorns and caterpillars in his bill. So I mentioned fecal sacs. I couldn't find a photo of an acorn woodpecker carrying a fecal sac, but fecal sac, that's F-E-C-A-L. But here is an incredible photo of a pileated woodpecker carrying one. It's a little hard to recognize because it's covered with wood chips, which almost always cover the bottom of the cavities of woodpeckers. So this is a fecal sac. It is a little membranous bag in which baby's poop is comes out. And especially toward the beginning of the nesting period, they the babies produce fecal sacs and the adults remove them, and it's a way of keeping the nest clean. After a while, in some cases, babies back up to the edge of the nest and do projectile pooping. And um, I don't know if actually it's fecal sacs that come out in that case or just regular poop. So, in addition to marriage, food, nesting, and childcare, what else do acorn woodpeckers do collectively? Well, they sleep communally, cramming as many as they can into one tree cavity, and the overflow goes into another one. And listen to this from a section of my acorn woodpecker chapter called Bedtime Shenanigans. Beginning about half an hour before dark, you will see birds coming and going from a tree cavity for reasons only they understand. One bird may perch on the edge of the opening, pivoting back and forth and peeking inside for an interminable interval. then finally enter the hole and very likely trigger an explosion of one or two birds out of it. Scraping or squabbling sounds may come from inside the cavity, as if the birds are jockeying for the best spots or are irritable at suddenly being crammed together in a stuffy, dark space. When escapees burst from the hole, they may fly to a nearby branch and engage in simulated sex. One will hop on the other's rump, flutter a bit, and hop down. Then the other will hop on the first one's rump, flutter a bit, and hop down. Often other clan members will swoop over and join the goings on. All boundaries will dissolve, with males hopping on males, females on females, non-breeders on breeders, and breeders on non-breeders. The comings and goings, pseudo-copulations, and swoopings from branch to branch will continue until dark, at which point the birds will slip into the roost cavity one by one and settle in for the night. Up to 14 birds have been found roosting in one cavity. And I believe that the two birds at the top of this snag, the one on the far left and the one next to that one, are having fake sex. So before I conclude with the last collective activity and the answer to the burning question, how do the non-breeding helpers manage to reproduce? I'm going to show you an acorn woodpecker with a yellow head that I saw in January. Acorn woodpeckers with these golden yellow crowns are extremely rare, but they're occasionally seen in California. And it seems that the golden crown can be either a genetic abnormality or a lack of the enzyme that converts yellow pigments that are found in the food they eat to red feather pigments. And I just asked Walt Koenig if such birds have trouble finding mates, and he doesn't know, but he doesn't see why they would. He had never seen such a bright golden crown before. And I did read that they engage in clan activities with just like all of the other birds. Even more astonishing is this acorn woodpecker on the right. Isn't he gorgeous? I am sure he's a male because of the placement of his crown, which is identical to the placement of the crown on the male to the left. If he were female, his red crown would sit further back on his head because that black band would be there. His condition is called non-melanin leucism, and the non-melanin means he doesn't have any black in him, except I do see a little bit of gray right here. So the last way that acorn woodpeckers work together cooperatively is in transitioning from being non-breeding helpers to being breeding birds. So here we have a clan with one remaining breeding female on the left. Let's call her Wendy, and a few non-breeding helpers. And then the males are on the right, the breeding males. And there's another clan a mile away, Clan B, with two female non-breeding helpers whose hormones are raging and they are desperate to reproduce. So every day, these two females, the ones on the left, fly separate scouting missions as far as 9 miles looking for breeding vacancies in other clans. And the reason they have to do this is that they can't breed with their parents because that would be incestuous. So they have to find non-relatives to breed with. So let's call the one on the far left on the bottom Lucy. So she flies off on a scouting mission and arrives at Clan A. Whoops. She'll call out, Waka, 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 meaning hello, hello, hello. And When Wendy appears, the remaining breeding female in that clan, and greets her back, she'll know that there's no breeding vacancy here for her, and she'll fly off and look for one somewhere else. But now, let's say later that afternoon, a sharp-shinned hawk comes along and carries off Wendy, Clan A's one remaining breeding female. So now Clan A has a breeding vacancy. And let's say the next morning, Lucy from Clan B flies the 9 miles again and shows up calling, Waka, Waka, Waka. Hello, hello, hello. And Wendy doesn't come out to greet her. So Lucy thinks, aha, Wendy has died or disappeared, and there's a breeding vacancy here, and I'm going to get it. So Lucy installs herself as the new breeding female, lets the guys know that she's their new wife, and pretty soon, and it's all okay for a few hours, and pretty soon, Rachel, a non-breeding female from another clan, from Clan C, shows up looking for a breeding vacancy. She calls Waka, 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 and when she's greeted by Lucy instead of Wendy, she realizes that Wendy has died or disappeared, and Lucy's trying to get her spot. So Rachel attacks Lucy, and they make a whole lot of squalling and squawking noises. They chase each other around. They might collide in midair and fall to the ground and lay stunned there for a while. They might peck at each other's heads. And the ruckus that they're making will attract their sisters. Or if they're not close enough to their sisters, they'll go home and find them and bring them back as reinforcements. So then we have 3 birds from Lucy's clan and 3 birds from Rachel's clan, all fighting each other, making even more noise. And that will then attract non-breeding females from other clans who will all come and join the fray. And sometimes there are as many as 50 birds fighting for a breeding vacancy. And the more birds, when there are a lot of birds, that usually indicates that it's a really good territory with a big granary and lots of oak trees to find acorns on. So these wars go on and on. They can last for a week and then subside and then start over again. And usually these are called sibling coalitions. And the reason I consider this a form of communalism is because the sisters, or it can also be brothers, fight together collectively for breeding vacancies. And finally, the largest clan, the largest coalition will win, and all the other birds will disappear, and up to 4 females will ensconce themselves as the new breeding females in this clan. So that is the end of my slideshow, and I'd like to let you know that you can go to my website at katemarianchild.com and find and read about the things I have there for sale. My book, Secrets of the Oak Woodlands, my oak identification guides to the common oaks of Central and Northern California, and close focusing binoculars. And you can read about them and decide if you'd like them and order them there. And thank you very much. It has been great talking with you.